discovery I wasn't meant to find. I'm a 26-year-old med student named Ethan, living an ordinary life in Portland, Oregon. My path to becoming a doctor has been set since I was a kid, but I've always had a side passion. My friend, who I'll call Marcus, and I love exploring abandoned places, old warehouses, crumbling mansions, you name it. Last summer, we decided to turn our hobby into a YouTube channel, filming our adventures to share with the world. We had a few trips under our belt and were gearing up to launch the channel. But we wanted one more outing to kick things off with a bang, something that would grab attention. Marcus, a tech wizard who studied cybersecurity, handled all the digital stuff. One evening, we were at his place in Seattle where he's got this insane computer setup that looks straight out of a sci-fi flick. While I was messing around on my phone, Marcus was poking around on a hidden corner of the internet, a place you need a special browser to access. He's always browsing these forums, saying they're great for learning advanced tech tricks, nothing shady. That night, he stumbled onto a thread for extreme urban explorers, people who travel globally to check out forgotten places like we do. Looking back, it's weird that this forum was tucked away in such a secretive part of the web. I mean, exploring abandoned buildings isn't exactly top secret, right? Or so I thought. Marcus suddenly spun around in his chair and said, "Yo, check your junk email." I've got a throwaway email for random sign-ups and spam, and I don't even recall telling him about it, but Marcus knows his stuff, so I didn't question it. Sure enough, there was a new email in my inbox, forwarded with no sender address, just a jumble of letters and numbers. The email contained a set of coordinates, hyperlinked to a private Google Drive folder Marcus had set up for us. Inside was a single .pdf file. The document was 3 pages long. Page 1 had the coordinates at the top, followed by a blurry satellite image of a rugged coastline, waves crashing against jagged cliffs. Below that was the same image, but in thermal imaging, with a timestamp in the corner. The month and day were blacked out, but the year was 2025, this year. In the thermal view, 5 orange dots glowed in 2 clusters near what looked like structures carved into the cliffside, though the details were hazy. The second page had 4 grainy screenshots, like stills from a tactical video game, but way too real. "What is this?" I asked, squinting at the images. Marcus leaned back. "No clue, but it's legit. I checked the metadata, 0 signs of tampering." The final page was the kicker. It showed a view through a rifle's night vision scope, aimed at a weathered wooden door set into a stone wall. 3 figures in tactical gear stood in a tight formation beside it. The door's padlock was busted, and the surrounding area was desolate. Withered trees and a sheer drop to what I assumed was the ocean below. Marcus broke the silence. "Some random account posted this on the forum a month ago. It blew up with theories. Most people thought it was a film student's prank. I thought so too, but it kept nagging at me. Then yesterday, that same account sent me a private message with these coordinates. No explanation. When I tried to reply, their profile was gone. He'd done some digging. The coordinates didn't show up on any public search engine or even the hidden web. The only lead came from a dusty archive at his university library, a record of construction permits issued during World War I for a small coastal town in British Columbia. But the coordinates pointed to a spot 30 miles off the coast of Vancouver Island, in the middle of the Pacific. Nothing should be there. Yet those images suggested otherwise. Marcus pitched the idea. What if we investigate this for the channel? Film the journey, maybe find whatever's at that location. I'm not one for wild conspiracies, but my spring break had just started and I had some savings. Curiosity got the better of me. "Fine, let's do it," I said. Marcus grinned. "Good, because our flight leaves tonight." My phone pinged with a travel confirmation email. Skipping the boring travel bits, we landed in a small fishing town on Vancouver Island. After checking into a motel, we headed to the local docks to ask around. The wharf was weathered, with a handful of fishing boats bobbing in the water and a few grizzled locals milling about. We approached a fisherman named Cal who was prepping his boat. We asked if he'd noticed anything odd, strange visitors, weird events. He brushed us off, saying it's the same routine every day and had been for decades. Marcus pulled out a slip of paper with the coordinates and offered to pay Cal to take us there. Cal barely glanced at the numbers, but then his face froze. "I'll take you," he said, voice low. "1 hour, in and out. Any longer, I'm gone." I jumped in. "You know what's out there?" He nodded curtly. "Old naval outpost, that's all. If you're smart, you'll go home. If not, be here at 11 p.m. Marcus and I exchanged uneasy glances, but agreed. We paid Cal half up front, returned to the motel to gear up, and grabbed a quick nap. We started filming as we left the motel, each wearing a chest-mounted camera linked to a portable hard drive to capture every second. The boat ride was freezing, the engine's roar drowning out any chance of conversation. A dark shape loomed on the horizon, growing larger as we approached, a rocky outcrop rising from the sea. Cal pulled up to a rotting wooden dock, the planks barely holding together. He handed us a timer set for 1 hour. "Tech act's funny out here," he warned, then sped off without another word. We switched on our flashlights and climbed a rusted spiral staircase carved into the cliff. At the top was a crumbling naval outpost, its concrete walls pitted by salt and time. Barely alive trees dotted the distance. We circled the structure, filming every detail, until we reached the front door. It matched the one in the photo. Wooden, splintered, with a broken padlock lying in the dirt. The door was slightly open. I grabbed the handle, but it wouldn't move. With a harder yank, it scraped open, dragging through the mud. Inside, a spiral staircase led to a platform with a massive, dust-covered spotlight encased in grimy glass. The stairs were too damaged to climb. The ground floor held nothing but rusted tools and smashed radio gear. We stepped back outside and followed a faint path into the barren forest. It ended at a sagging chain-link fence, easy to slip through. A few yards further, we found a low concrete building, like a bunker, with a faded sign. Officers' quarters. Its steel door was covered in strange symbols and chalk markings. Scrawled in bold red paint were the words, "Keep out of the dark." My stomach churned. As I stepped back, my foot caught on something, a shattered rifle, snapped clean in half, its edges jagged. It looked identical to the one in the photo. "Is that—" Marcus started. "Yeah," I said, voice tight. The door was barred by a steel beam with a wheel lock. I gripped the wheel, and after a moment of resistance, it spun freely, the door swinging open with a groan. Our flashlights revealed a short hallway with 3 doorways, 2 open on the right, 1 closed on the left. The open rooms were a trashed bathroom and a combined kitchen and lounge, their doors ripped off. "This is gold for the channel," Marcus said, but I wasn't so sure. The timer read 003400. The closed door looked off, like it didn't belong. It wasn't on hinges, just propped up, held in place by something behind it. We pushed hard, inching it open enough to slip through. A foul stench hit us immediately. The door was braced by a pile of furniture, file cabinets, a cot, a table, like someone had tried to seal it shut. The room was larger, mostly empty, except for the barricade. My flashlight swept across the space and froze on a figure slumped over a desk. A man in a lab coat, motionless, surrounded by a dark stain on the floor. In his hand was a sleek, modern handgun, not some antique relic. As the med student, I had to check. The body wasn't old, maybe a few weeks. A wound at the back of his head suggested foul play, precise and deliberate, not self-inflicted. The desk held a typewriter, but no paper. Marcus and I were at a loss. Call the authorities? Explain we followed a cryptic internet trail to a restricted island? We'd sound insane. And deep down, we knew we were in over our heads. We searched the room for clues. Under the desk, I spotted a metal ammo box, the man's rigid finger pointing toward it. I dragged it out, and Marcus knelt beside me. Inside were rows of bullets, but beneath them, I felt something else. A small parcel, wrapped in brittle paper, tied with twine. A folded document was tucked into the knot. The timer flashed 000800. No time to check it. We stuffed the parcel in my bag and bolted, racing back to the dock just as Cal's boat reappeared. Back on the mainland, we paid Cal the rest, plus a tip. His final words haunted me. "Hope you didn't take what you came for." At the motel, we opened the parcel, but I'm not ready to process what was inside. Worse, when we checked our footage, every file was corrupted, completely unreadable. That, combined with the parcel's contents, killed our YouTube dreams. I've scanned the documents and photos from the parcel into a single file. Inside that package we recovered was a journal, loose pages slipped between its entries, a hard drive, and a chilling note. What follows is the verbatim account of the man we found in that bunker, transcribed exactly as written. His words read like a story, almost as if he was trying to distance himself from a grim reality, knowing his time was short. The journal has many entries, so I'll likely break this up into parts, partly to pace myself, partly to give myself a chance to back out and let this fade into obscurity. Pardon any rough or barely legible errors, as I'm stuck with an ancient typewriter scavenged from a desk in this crumbling outpost. This note and my journal are hidden in hopes they reach someone who can handle this knowledge. If you're reading this, you might be that person. If not, well, I can only wish you luck. The journal's pages chronicle the past few weeks and what unfolded. The typed pages I'm adding now are arranged to bridge gaps in those accounts. Most critically, there's a hard drive in this package. If you access it, be ready. They'll come for you. They won't let this knowledge spread, and I'm already out of time. I risked everything to secure that drive, and I'd rather not relive those moments. It holds raw data from a ship's computer system, audio, video, logs. You could play them, but I hope my account deters you. They're evidence, detailed where relevant. I know my hours are numbered. They've likely noticed my absence. I escaped that ship on a stolen raft and ended up here, at this old naval outpost on what's left of this island. A bit about me. I enlisted in the Navy in the early 2000s to fund my education. After my service, I studied physics, specializing in theoretical quantum mechanics. I won't bore you with the projects I've worked on, but they involved exploring alternate dimensions. 3 weeks ago, an old commander from my first deployment, Captain Hayes, called out of the blue. We hadn't spoken in years, so it was odd. He claimed he got my number from the university where I'd been a research assistant. I knew a temp gig wouldn't land me in their directory, but before I could push back, he asked to meet that night at a diner in Tacoma, Washington. It was abrupt, but curiosity got me, and I agreed. The call ended sharply, and hours later, I was at the diner. There was Captain Hayes, a faded cap pulled low over his eyes, sitting in a corner booth by a fogged-up window. As I sat, he opened his coat and slid a folder across the table. Stamped in bold red were the letters SCI over the title. Project V.A.N.T.A.G.E. in fine print at the bottom, property of United States government. I remembered SCI meant secret compartmentalized information, the highest clearance level, something I'd never touched in my Navy days. "This is urgent," he said, cutting me off before I could speak. I opened the folder. Inside were grainy photos of a village under construction. In 1914, as World War I kicked off, the US realized it was lagging in scientific innovation, despite what history claims. Hayes began. President Wilson funneled massive funds into a covert project, masked by layers of bureaucratic cover. The goal was vague, just to weaponize a scientific breakthrough. The photos showed a small neighborhood, eerily artificial. One image captured a street lined with houses, populated not by people but by mannequins dressed in period clothing. Hayes continued. The government bought a tiny island off the coast of British Columbia through shell companies. It was the hub for this experiment. Officially, it's recorded as a premature stab at what later became the Manhattan Project. The photos depicted a nuclear test site, fake homes, cars, and mannequins arranged to mimic an idyllic American town. I flipped to another image, a towering lighthouse, oddly prominent against the staged village in the background. And, unofficially, I pressed. Hayes tensed. It started as a weapons project, but it went beyond that. There's a report in there you'll understand better than me. I found it. A document dated July 15th, 1914, formatted like a scientific brief. It outlined theories and rough schematics. My quantum mechanics background helped me pass it. The project aimed to develop a nuclear-like device, but the tech of the era couldn't handle fusion or fission. Instead, scientists proposed using focused electromagnetic pulses to trigger a detonation remotely. A sketch showed a double-sided spotlight, annotated with equations and component labels. Hayes spoke as I studied it. They installed this device in the lighthouse. The village was built as a controlled test site. For over a year, it worked perfectly. They'd aim the beam at a device, and it would detonate, silent, untraceable. The potential was staggering, but with the war ending, they decided it was too dangerous to continue. "So what happened?" I asked, hooked. "They tried to erase it," Hayes said. "Literally." I was puzzled. They planned a final test, but it went wrong. They activated something called Collapse Protocol. I pulled out a document titled Collapse Protocol and Procedures for Site Erasure. It explained that the island sat on a fault line near a deep ocean trench. Before the project began, explosives were buried along the fault. If things went south, they'd detonate them, sinking the island and all evidence. And that's what they did. But the scientists ran the test anyway, Hayes continued. They sabotaged the device to make it fail, but instead, it unleashed energy levels they couldn't control, creating what reports call spatial distortions. So they triggered the explosives, sinking the village and most of the facilities. All that's left is the lighthouse and a few old bunkers. He pointed to the folder. 2 weeks ago, a file labeled Project V.A.N.T.A.G.E, Vanguard Assessment, Neutralization, Tracking, and Geologic Evaluation, landed on my desk. A private firm, Ocean Pulse, was mapping the seabed near the island when they lost 2 submersibles near that trench. They alerted the Coast Guard, and days later, wreckage surfaced, scorched and melted. The folder held photos of the debris on a ship's deck. The submersibles streamed live footage to the ship's servers until they went dark. Hayes handed me a tablet with a video queued up. I pressed play. The footage showed a dark abyss, particles drifting past the camera as it descended. The depth gauge climbed, 8,000 feet, 8,500 feet. Static flickered, then cleared. At 14,000 feet, the image sharpened. A collapsed house appeared, surrounded by rubble. Another structure clung to an underwater cliff. A mannequin floated by, its blank face eerie in the camera's light. A shadowy, elongated shape darted across the frame, and the feed cut out. "They found the village?" "Underwater?" I asked, stunned. "I've said too much already," Hayes replied. "I'm assembling a team to investigate. The research vessel's been secured by the Coast Guard, officially for regional security concerns. You'll lead the project's research and assist me as needed. I chose you for 2 reasons. First, whatever we find is part of a massive cover-up, and if it unravels, someone needs to expose it. You're my backup. Second, we trusted each other in life or death moments back in the service." I winced, memories of my first deployment surfacing. "That trust holds," he added, "and the pay's not bad." My phone buzzed with a deposit notification, more money than I'd ever seen. I'm stopping here. Transcribing this took a toll, and I need time to process. I planned to include the first journal entry, but this is heavy. I'll post again once we land in Portland, and I'm settled. Marcus and I will meet tomorrow after some rest. It took a lot to convince him to keep going, and I'll use the rest of this flight to make sure we're on the same page. Hey everyone, I'm shaken. Last night, I was blatantly followed from the airport to my home in Portland, Oregon. The car tailing me made no effort to hide, almost like they wanted me to know. It parked on my street all night, only leaving at dawn. That's when I started prepping this post. I didn't dare check it out. I just locked every door and window. Marcus and I are supposed to meet later, but with this, I'm wondering if it's safer to lay low. Was it just me, or is someone watching both of us? I was too rattled to mention it over the phone, so I'll talk it over with him in person. For now, here are the first journal entries from the package we found, as promised. March 5th, 2025. I met Captain Hayes this morning for a flight to a small naval outpost near Vancouver Island, Canada, where we'd board a research vessel offshore. The journey was smooth, nothing noteworthy. Before heading to the heliport, I got a briefing at a low-key facility about an hour's drive from a coastal town outside Victoria. I was ushered into a room with 6 others: Captain Hayes, 2 burly guys named Cole and Max, a confident woman named Sarah, who flashed a warm smile but carried an air of authority, a jittery young guy named Liam, who fumbled his introduction, and me. We stood around briefly until the door swung open. In strode an older man, his uniform gleaming with medals and 4 stars, a high-ranking admiral. Hayes, Cole, and Sarah snapped to attention, saluting. I'd been out of the Navy long enough that my salute lagged, but I followed their lead. "At ease," the admiral barked, striding to a projector. He flicked a switch, and a screen descended. "Captain Hayes selected you for a classified operation, which you've been partially briefed on. This is off the record. Some of you are civilians, and even active or former personnel lack the clearance for what's coming." I'd suspected as much. "You'll split into 2 teams, surface and dive. Each of you has tailored intel for your roles. Here's what we know." He clicked a remote, displaying a sonar map of the seabed dotted with unnatural structures. "We're probing electromagnetic anomalies tied to a submerged pre-war test site. The location's history is need to know, and you don't. The environment is treacherous, which is why we've got the Navy's top divers." Cole, Max, and Sarah nodded, exuding quiet confidence. The Admiral advanced to a video, clearer than the one Hayes showed me at the diner, with no static. It featured advanced metrics: temperature, pressure, salinity, and a small radar. As the depth hit 9,500 feet, salinity plummeted to near zero, and pressure dropped to levels you'd expect at a few hundred feet. "This underwater trench preserved the site," the Admiral explained. "At its depth, it's like a freshwater pocket. The tests conducted there left lasting effects." The footage shifted from darkness to a house, upright but battered, its windows framing floating debris. The camera panned to reveal 2 more homes amid rubble, twisted metal, and mannequin limbs drifting like ghosts. A full 360-degree sweep showed a house's foundation next to its collapsed frame, with suburban debris embedded in the trench wall. The unnaturalness of it all was chilling. I noticed the Admiral skipped mentioning the shadow I'd seen in the diner video. My gut told me to stay quiet. The screen switched to a paused infrared feed of the site. With no heat at that depth, it was nearly blank, the structures faintly outlined by software. "This is our target," the Admiral said, starting the video. "Since we deployed deep-sea cameras and sensors, these anomalies have appeared daily, syncing with electromagnetic spikes." 3 rapid flashes blinked across the structures. In slow motion, they looked like slits in the fabric of the footage, followed by brief, blinding light. "That's all we've got," the Admiral concluded, raising the screen. "You'll get detailed role briefings on the vessel. The first dive is in 48 hours. Captain Hayes is your point of contact, reporting directly to me." "Thank you, Admiral Grayson," Hayes said. The Admiral exited briskly. "Gear up and meet at the heliport," Hayes ordered. We were handed small, reinforced containers, Faraday cages to shield electronics from electromagnetic interference. A sailor collected our phones, labelled the containers, and stowed them in the helicopter. March 6th, 2025. Today was quiet. The helicopter landed us last night on a massive naval carrier anchored near the research vessel. A few Coast Guard boats lingered but vanished by morning, likely to resupply. One thing stood out on the research vessel, a retrofitted freighter packed with cutting-edge tech. We met the Ocean Pulse crew, who seemed under subtle watch. Armed guards shadowed them, though they had normal freedoms, daily supply runs, even personal shopping lists. But they faced one odd rule: no deck access after sunset unless escorted on assignment. It felt strangely specific, but I'm not here to question it. After my diner meeting with Hayes, I've learned to keep my head down and stick to my role. I'm pausing the journal entries here because Marcus just called with something urgent. He's heading to my place now. I'll wrap this post after we talk and share what's going on. Marcus was followed from the airport too. That was enough to cement his resolve to keep digging. Whether we like it or not, we're too deep. What couldn't you say on the phone? I asked, my nerves fraying. I turned on my computer this morning and a chat window popped up on its own. I couldn't control it. A message appeared: cease your search. Then the screen froze. No keyboard commands worked. It went black and the PC shut off. It won't turn back on. His words hit like a cold wave. What now? He asked, voice trembling. I had no answer then, and I don't now. I'm ending this post here. I'll share more journal entries tomorrow and update you on where we stand. Hey everyone, I hesitated to post this after the chaos of the past few days. I had everything typed up, but held off, paralyzed by fear. Now, I'm done caring. Whatever comes, I'll face it. After my last post, strange things happened with my account. I'm not chasing conspiracies, just laying out what happened. I posted, but the next morning, my posts were stuck in pending despite having comments and upvotes. Then, everything, posts, profile, all of it, vanished. Refreshing pages and rebooting my router did nothing. Hours later, Marcus worked some tech magic I can't explain, and it all reappeared. Normally, I'd link to previous parts, but just check my profile. They're there. If you're caught up, keep reading. It felt like someone knew I was digging and tried to erase me, but botched it. Then, I got a call from Marcus's mom. It was unusual. She was frantic, asking if I'd heard from him. I hadn't since he fixed my account the day before. She said his car was at his apartment, but he wasn't. I promised to call him and get back to her. His phone rang once, then went straight to voicemail. I called his mom back, and she was headed to the police. I tried to stall her, saying I'd keep looking, but she wasn't having it. Thank goodness, her instinct was spot on. At the station in Portland, Oregon, she was arguing with a rookie officer who calmly explained they couldn't file a missing person report for 48 hours. A detective overheard, stepping in more to rescue the officer than to help us. He sat us down and we explained everything, giving him Marcus's details. He dialed Marcus's number right there. "You sure this is right, kid?" he asked me. I nodded. It was correct. "Says it's out of service," he added. "That's impossible," I said. "It went to voicemail this morning." He scribbled something, looking puzzled, then promised to follow up, handing us his card. I told Marcus's mom I'd keep searching, and we parted ways. My mind was reeling. This had to connect to what we found on that island. Something, or someone, was retaliating for our discovery. I went home and dove back into the journal, rereading every word. Here's the next part for you to see. March 7th, 2025. Dive day. This morning, I'm meeting Captain Hayes, then setting up and testing our equipment and monitors before final checks with the divers. I forgot to mention the divers' prep. At that depth, they're free diving, so they've been in a saturation chamber to adjust to the pressure. Normally, commercial divers need weeks in a chamber, but the Navy brought a specialized unit from the carrier, paired with a new IV solution. It cut the acclimation to 24 hours before they transferred to the dive bell. Checking equipment is tricky since they go straight from chamber to bell, but everyone here, especially the Navy, seems eerily prepared, like they've drilled for this exact scenario. The dive is set for 0357 UTC, 8:57 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Topside conditions are perfect. Clear weather, calm currents. I toured the monitoring station where I'll be during the dive. The gear is state-of-the-art, practically gleaming. I've got a team of 5. Liam is my second, plus 3 Ocean Pulse techs. I'll oversee the dive, watching live feeds from the diver's helmet cams on 4 monitors. The 4th screen shows a remote-operated vehicle, ROV. I control with a gamepad, simple enough after a quick tutorial. Liam has the same setup. I'll also have a headset with a direct line to the divers, no lag or interference, thanks to some military tech. As civilians, we signed NDAs. I'm not sure if I'm civilian or military here, so this journal feels like a grey area. That's what I tell myself. March 8th, 2025. It was horrific. I'm struggling to process it, my mind grasping for logic where there is none. I'll start from the dive prep. Liam and I reviewed the plan with the team at the monitoring station. The techs showed us how to use the dive cams. My 4 screens displayed each diver's helmet and body cams, plus the ROV feed. The divers, Cole, Max and Sarah, moved from the saturation chamber to the dive bell, donning sleek suits. Unlike bulky commercial dive gear, these were streamlined, reinforced, almost like sci-fi armor. A tech bolted their helmets, gloves and boots with a power drill, securing them at the neck, wrists and ankles. Through a glass airlock, we watched them give thumbs-ups to the tech and each other. On the wall were 3 rifle-like devices. Each diver grabbed one, checking sights and features I couldn't discern. They weren't standard firearms, something advanced, military grade. Their dive knives were sheathed on their shoulders, a tactical choice unlike the thigh placement I'd seen before. Their suits screamed combat readiness. They tested comms, looking at us. Before I could ask about the weapons, Hayes leaned over, pressing my headset's comm button. "Loud and clear," he said. The divers gave another thumbs up and entered the bell. "Weapons?" I asked Hayes. "Need to know," he said, almost regretful. "Had to get you here." "It's fine," I said, meaning it, but still confused. "Why, though?" He pulled me to a corner, away from Liam and the techs. "You saw the shadow in that video. I saw it in your eyes. Same look I had. Those slits down there are letting something through. Humanoid, shadow-like entities. They move unnaturally, gliding through water like it's air, teleporting. We've got one recorded encounter, brief, on a stationary cam. A floodlight broke as one passed, and it dissipated, reforming after the electrical surge faded. The weapons are a precaution, high-frequency electromagnetic pulses in an air pocket that bursts on impact. Tested, nearly ready for broader use. You'll hear about it soon if this goes well." It was a lot, but it eased my mind. I wasn't imagining those shadows, and I didn't have to bring it up. The dive bell was lowered by a hydraulic crane, connected to the ship by a thick cable of wires and tubes in clear nylon. It took 4 hours to reach the site, hovering above the sunken village. After another equipment and comms check, the bell's hatch opened. A cage with 3 compartments lowered, each diver in their own section. A tech stayed in the bell, managing systems. The cage unlatched, and the divers stepped out. Air hissed from their suit backpacks, propelling them down until their boots hit the seabed, glowing soles anchoring them. They moved like a tactical squad, sweeping the area with gun-mounted and suit-mounted flashlights. I watched their first-person feeds, so immersive it felt like I was there. I was glad I wasn't. They entered a house, furniture floating eerily. Floodlights we'd set up cast dim light through broken windows, not enough for clear visibility. Cole's cam showed him unclipping a device from his belt, reading electromagnetic levels on a green to red scale. The needle hovered in green, but spiked briefly when pointed in one direction. He signaled, and Max and Sarah followed, forming a line toward a staircase. Their boots locked with each step, moving fluidly. Max reached the top first, scanning a hallway. One end opened to the ocean through a collapsed roof. The other led to a doorless room. They cleared it. A crib pressed against the ceiling, tattered stuffed animals in a corner, a bookshelf with faded children's books. Cole checked his device. The needle stayed green. "Clear," he said through my headset. They swam out through the roof hole, heading to another house's rooftop. Cole's device beeped, the needle now steady in yellow. Entering, Sarah said. They slipped through a broken window, pulling out the frame. Inside, their boots re-anchored. They swept 2 bedrooms and a bathroom, furnished, lived in, yet part of a test site. Why the mannequins? Questions piled up. Suddenly, all 3 cams flared white. The light dimmed, revealing a pulsating purple slit at the base of a staircase, framed by jagged, glowing grey-black stones. A shadow darted out, and the slit vanished. The room went still, as it should at 14,000 feet. But it shouldn't have been. "Clear to engage," Hayes yelled, snatching my headset. He bolted to a satellite phone on the wall. The shadow flickered across the monitors, dodging bright bursts from the divers' weapons. One shot hit, and a piercing shriek tore through my headset, making us all clutch our heads in pain. Through Sarah's cam, I saw the creature wrap around Max, his body rigid. His eyes turned black, veins glowing. His mouth opened as if to speak, but the shadow tapped his helmet's glass. It vanished, and Max snapped back, panic in his eyes. A crack spiderwebbed across his helmet, and a red mist bloomed as the pressure crushed it. I looked away. "Return to Bell now," the Bell tech screamed. Red emergency lights replaced the room's normal ones. A calm PA voice announced, "This is a lockdown. Remain in your stations." The ship lurched, moving. Outside, a sudden lightning storm raged, thunder crashing, rain pouring. The divers were 30 minutes from the Bell, racing against time. The Bell's safety dwindled as the ship, tethered 14,000 feet above, rocked in 20-foot waves. Static fritzed the monitors. The techs called it outside interference. When the feeds cleared, Sarah and Cole were nearing the Bell. Their cams showed purple slits opening everywhere, shadowy humanoids crawling or darting out. Darkness overwhelmed the light. Sarah's cam looked up at the Bell, shadows swirling around its cable. One passed through, leaving a sizzling purple line. More followed, and the cable split. The Bell sank, landing yards ahead of the divers. Sarah's cam turned to Cole as a shadow merged with him. His eyes blackened, veins glowed. Then every monitor went static, then black. Silence filled the room. "All crew on deck," the PA intoned. I checked my watch. 12:39 UTC, sunset. Curfew was irrelevant now. On deck, rain and wind howled. Hayes held a tablet, shouting over the storm. "Lopez, Carter, Reed, Thompson, Evans, Parker, Hill, and Young, follow me." Armed soldiers appeared. Hayes led the named group, including Liam, to the port side, out of sight. Guards formed a line, barking, "Return to your quarters." I was escorted to my room, the door shutting behind me. On the way, I glimpsed Hayes through a portside window, arm raised, followed by a flash. He stepped aside, another flash. Was he targeting those named? I couldn't be sure. Sleep was impossible. March 9th, 2025. Nightmares plagued me. Shadowy figures, familiar yet faceless, watching me. I woke drenched in sweat. At dawn, the crew gathered in the dining hall. None of Hayes's listed names were present. The storm had calmed, and a helicopter's hum grew close, then faded. Admiral Grayson entered with Hayes. No one stood. "You're here because you're trusted," Grayson said. This was a research study with no results. No further details, ever. "You'll be well compensated. This vessel and its equipment are now military property. Return to your quarters. Your devices will be there. Report to the helicopter in 1 hour." They left before questions could be raised. I detoured to the portside lower deck. A guard patrolled, so I hid behind a container, darting to the railing under a staircase. I found nothing until my foot nudged a 9mm shell casing. 2 more lay by the staircase. It confirmed my fear. The curfew, the list. Those named were silenced, likely researchers unaware of the project's depth. I returned to my room, plotting. I'd hit the monitoring station, wipe a hard drive meant for entertainment, and copy the ship's data from a restricted system only I could access. Then I'd take a piloted lifeboat from the deck's edge. That helicopter wasn't taking me to safety. Later that day, final entry. I'm in the lifeboat. I reached the monitoring room, plugged in the drive, and waited. The transfer crawled. A guard, the one who ordered us inside last night, burst in, rifle raised. "You're not supposed to be here." I raised my hands, hoping he'd missed the drive. He didn't, ordering me to my knees. As he approached, I lunged, slamming him into a wall. We were evenly matched. I struck his forearm, dislodging his rifle, still slung to his shoulder. He tripped me, and we fell, him on top, landing blows. I blocked one, grabbed his hand, and yanked his shoulder-sheathed knife, driving it into his neck. His strength faded, eyes wide, blood pooling as he collapsed. The drive's transfer completed. I yanked it out, heart pounding, and ran, vaulting over the ship's railing into the lifeboat. I sealed the hatch, and the craft powered up. "Prepare for release," a speaker announced. It dropped, bobbing briefly before settling. The controls were simple. I gunned the engine, steering away. 10 minutes later, a massive flash lit the cabin. Through the rear porthole, a dome of lightning engulfed the carrier, research vessel, and nearby boats, purple glow and sparks cascading into the depths. Then, it all vanished. Waves rocked the lifeboat for a minute. I don't know what's next or where's safe. I recall coordinates for an island tied to this project, jotted down before boarding. It's my best shot for answers, because I have none. That's the journal's end. The hard drive holds the footage described, nothing more. Like you, I'm left with questions. Did something cross into our world from elsewhere? A place beyond our comprehension? I've studied the drive's data, piecing together physics I barely grasp. These entities seem to come from another dimension, a liminal space between our universe's time and reality, now linked by whatever happened here. Marcus is still missing. I've scoured Portland, his favorite cafes, his apartment, his social media. His accounts are gone, disabled. I was trembling when I called his mum. She answered hopefully, then deflated when I had no news. She'd heard nothing either. Then I had a hunch. I parked near Marcus's apartment, watching from a distance. At dusk, a black van, the same style that followed me, pulled up, blocking my view of his door. It idled for 10 minutes, then left. I waited an hour before approaching. I buzzed random apartments, slurring a fake drunken plea about lost keys. Someone let me in. I used my key to Marcus's place. Everything looked normal until I passed his computer. It powered on, as if sensing me. A video auto-cued. I hit play. It showed a storage container, a flickering light overhead. Marcus sat chained to the floor, taped at the mouth. A woman stepped into frame, her back to the camera. She drew a pistol, raising it to his head. Marcus thrashed, then froze. A flash, and a red spray stained the floor behind him. She holstered the gun, picked up the casing, and walked off, clad in black. A note rose into view. C-E-A-S-E. It lowered, revealing her face, black eyes, glowing veins. I knew her from the dive footage. Sarah.